and welcome to Standard Precautions and Beyond, Conversations in Infection Prevention and Control, a podcast of the Alabama Regional Center for Infection Prevention and Control, Training and Technical Assistance, or ARC-IPC. My name is Mina Nabavi with the ARC-IPC at the University of Alabama at Birmingham's School of Public Health. For many months, parents have been told COVID vaccines for their children under 5 were on the way. But shifting timelines, delays, and misinformation have left many parents frustrated and confused. In addition, as COVID restrictions are relaxed, many parents of young children are desperate to know when they can expect a vaccine to be authorized for their young children. Parents have turned to Facebook and other online forums for answers to their questions, which has led to conspiracy theories and rumors galore. To bring some clarity to this conversation, we have invited Dr. Candace Dye, an associate professor at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, an academic general pediatrician at Children's of Alabama, to join us to talk about the latest updates on the COVID vaccine approval for children under 5. So thank you for being here, Dr. Dye, and joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So for a while, it looked like a vaccine for children under 5 would be available at the beginning of 2022. However, it has been about a month or so since Pfizer and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration delayed key steps toward authorizing a COVID-19 vaccine for this population. What happened back in February, and where do things stand today? And for a reference for our listeners, we are recording this podcast on Monday, March 28th, 2022.
Yes, so back in February, it was announced that Pfizer was going to pursue that emergency authorization use and submit their data, and maybe a little under pressure from the FDA and so forth to get this going, and the data wasn't complete yet, and honestly I got real excited and said, oh gosh, this is great. Let's get this going. I mean, we have so many patients obviously in that age group, and Omicron was surging still, and especially, in the South, and, just any additional protection we could get our youngest population would, certainly be welcomed. But, within just a short, few minutes really after that news broke, and talking with infectious disease colleagues and people who I hold very highly, and they pointed out that we don't want to rush it, and I think that was really spoke volumes. We want this to be right, and as you have even already said, and I'm sure we will talk more about, there has been mistrust and misinformation that has just gone wild in our culture, and we want this to be right when it does go for that approval. We need the rest of the data. At that point, they were saying that they were still studying that maybe that age group needs a third dose, and that part of the trial was still going on, and so I think the big message is that it just needs a little bit more time, and we want that data to be complete before it goes for that EAU, and that made a lot of sense to me. We certainly don't want to allow any room for the population, the mindset that is going to be the naysayers, to have any room to cast any more doubt than they already have. So we want it to be complete, we want it to be right, we want it to be ready, and to not be rushed just to get it done if it's not going to be good and right.
So I know you touched on this, whether it was going to be a 2-course or 3-course vaccine, but could you speak further on what all does the FDA consider before approving a vaccine? Can you speak to that a little further?
Yeah, and I'm certainly not the the expert in that area, but they look at all the data and the trials that have been going on. I mean, thank goodness that there are so many families and children, willing to be a part of these trials, so that we can get this data and we can be able to study, how they are responding, and what level of protection they are getting from this. They look at everything, and the committee is part of that. I mean, there's so many different levels and so many different wonderful, very, very, very knowledgeable experts that are on these panels that are coming through all of the minutia that is there. And again, it's a very thorough process, and it's a trusted process, and we want it to continue to be so.
So I know, so far, most of the discussion around a vaccine for children under the age of 5 has really been centered around Pfizer's vaccine. But last week, there was news that Moderna was planning to seek authorization for use of a COVID-19 vaccine for infants and children under 5. Could you, provide a little bit more information of what you know? And again, this is very recent news. And for those joining in the middle of this podcast, again, this is as of Monday, March 28th of 2022. Can you provide, any information of what you know about Moderna's vaccine?
Yeah. So again, this is, one of the trials that has been going on, and announced, what was it, on Wednesday morning last week, the 23rd, that Moderna was ready to bring forth its data and submit it for the EAU to the FDA. What I do know is that it is a 2-dose, 25 micrograms, and it's a quarter of the dose that the adults have received with the Moderna vaccine, and it's for that 6-month to less than 6 years of age group. And so again, very exciting that they are ready to submit their data. And I think we just have to, wait and see what that shows us, and what, they'll set meetings and so forth to review that and go through it and see if it's, if it meets the standard that we want it to. It's a waiting game. But it's at hopefully near the finish line. So
sounds good. So we'll keep posted and be on the lookout for more news about it. So I want to get into a little bit of the topic of misinformation. So misinformation has confused parents. It's caused unnecessary concern that vaccines will be further delayed. I know that, earlier this year, there was a myth that sprung up and circulated around the internet that the FDA had a policy that prohibited it from authorizing vaccines for age groups out of order, that I believe was referred to an age de-escalation policy. Is that a real FDA policy?
I honestly had to look that up. I have not heard that lingo, but what I did find is that I don't know that it's a true term or policy per se, but there are vaccines that may be studied in older, populations, older age groups, but it's really only a vaccine that young children need, infants need. And so I honestly am not real sure what all the myths were that were out there, but I think it probably, relates to, well, this has been studied in the older population, older age groups, and worked its way down to the children. And is that appropriate? Is it okay that, Moderna is seeking this approval in the youngest age group, but haven't in that, elementary age group, when those studies have been going on too? And what I did read is that Moderna is pushing that data forward too for the less than 16 year olds. So there is a a method. We trust that method. We have relied on that method for eons, and it works. Leave the science to the scientist and have faith in that. And also, though, know where you're getting your information from. One of the reasons I probably have not heard about that is because during the pandemic, I have not honestly been on social media a ton. It's just such a platform for anybody, regardless, and it is such a breeding ground for misinformation, disinformation.
Well, and that's a great segue to my last question for you, Dr. Dye. Where can parents go to find more information about COVID-19 vaccines and children? What are some trusted sources that you recommend for your patients or parents of your patients?
The first point is your child's pediatrician. And hopefully you have a relationship with them. Your child has been going to them. You already have that trust there. You believe them and, trust them to take care of them when they're born, when they are, getting their kindergarten, what we call the kindergarten shot at that 4 to 5 age. You trust them when they're, sick, have an ear infection, and, are coming to you because they're waking up in the middle of the night, crying with ear pain. So I hope that relationship is already there, and that is your first stop. And layered on top of that is the CDC, of course. I mean, they have, you go to their website and it's, the very opening page is, COVID, and the information is there with further links to supplemental information. And then, of course, that is backed by the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics. And so that's our pediatricians, kind of governing body within every specialty has their own affiliate basically of that. But that's where the truth information is. And that's where I would really hope that people would turn to. And just having those conversations. I've said before that, I was talking with a mom on the phone, and she was asking me, something about the COVID vaccine. I just said, what are your concerns? And she said something, and I said, well, actually, that's not true, and explained it to her. And she said, oh, well, I'm so glad that I talked to you. I've got to go tell my friends because they're the ones that told me this. And I was like, please, find the truth and share the truth that is there. So.
And I like that. And, and even though, right, the vaccines aren't available for the children under 5 right now, having these conversations now, so when hopefully the vaccines are available for this age group, the answers, the truth, what's available, so you can get your child vaccinated as soon as the vaccines are available.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Dye, for this very timely and informative podcast. You've provided a lot of great information for parents, grandparents, and caregivers for children under 5, and I hope that we can invite you back for another podcast soon.
Thank you very much. I would appreciate that.
And thank you for listening. Please tune in next time for another episode from Standard Precautions and Beyond, Conversations in Infection Prevention and Control.